Well, this is supposed to be the summer series of Alpine stories, but yesterday you would never have known it. As I was driving over the Bokong High Plains Road to Falls Creek here in Victoria, it started sleeting and snowing and the conditions turned absolutely freezing, and it was actually 1 degree when I got here to Falls Creek. Anyway, today's beautiful and clear. It's still very cold, but you never know what sort of weather the Alps might throw up. Alpine bogs and wetlands are fascinating, and their existence is critical to maintaining a steady water supply from the mountains over the long summers. But they're delicate and complex and require careful management, especially in major fire years. Well, just pulling up now is my buddy for today, Parks Victoria Ranger Elaine Thomas, who doesn't mind getting bogged down. Hi Elaine.
Hi Richard,
how are you going? Yeah,
looks
good.
like you picked the best day for this.
Well,
I'm glad it wasn't yesterday.
Oh yeah, right, I was going to talk to you about that. I mean, what is it with the Alpine weather?
Oh, beautiful one day, perfect the next, I think.
Is that right?
Yeah, because I think tomorrow the weather's going to come in again as well. They're even predicting snow down to 1,400 metres.
Hang on, this is my summer series here that we're talking about.
I know, and I've got my thermals and I've got about 4 or 5 layers of clothing on today. You just got to be ready for everything around here.
We took the opportunity to find a warm spot inside to plan our day.
So Elaine, where exactly are we going to go today?
So we'll head out of Falls Creek and over the dam wall and around the Rocky Valley Dam to the turn off to Wallace's Hut, which is an old cattleman's hut, and then we'll go over the road there and head into a bog, one of the bogs over that side of the road there.
This feels like wild, untamed exploration. And when you get to the top of the high country, no matter how much you try and block it out, the wind gets through, whether it's your clothing or to the microphone. And despite putting on the hairiest cover I could find, the alpine air is clearly felt. And that's just the mic. These bog areas have been cordoned off from cattle and other activities since the 1940s and provide researchers with invaluable sites for their continuing investigation into the importance of bogs.
So we're on the Bokong High Plains at the moment. We're in the Rocky Valley catchment, so that drains into the Rocky Valley Dam. And we're in one of the moss beds, of which there's over 100, possibly 200 or so on the high plains. And we're in a bog, a special one probably, because it was fenced off in the 1940s by Maisie Fawcett to do monitoring and look at what was happening with the system in here.
It's really valuable, isn't it, to think that this bog was actually fenced off. I mean, we're talking about 60 years ago?
That's right. There's not a lot of long-term ecological research like this, not only in the bogs or in the alpine area, but probably in Victoria or even Australia. So these sorts of sites are critical. And we're lucky we've got some really passionate and dedicated scientists who are continuing the work in here and who are continuing to monitor it. And they're associated with universities and they're bringing their students up as well. So, continuing to pass on that knowledge and using these areas as teaching areas for future ecologists.
Now, a bog is a very complex area, isn't it?
That's right. I'm learning that.
But you've actually got a very interesting analogy for a bog area, and it's something that's quite personal to you, isn't it?
That's right, Richard. About 6 months ago, I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, so something completely out of the blue. And and I'm learning that there's lots of elements involved in diabetes. It's all about your blood sugar level, it's all about food, it's about exercise. And if you consider each of those elements separately, you can manage those things, but when you put them all together, they all play off each other and react with each other. So I need to take insulin to manage my blood sugar, and all of that is affected by exercise and food and the sugar levels I have at the time. So it makes for quite a real juggling act. Just like with diabetes, no two people manage their diabetes the same, because as individuals we react to things differently. Bogs do the same thing. Some might be high up in the catchment and some might be low down in the catchment. Some are steep and some might be flatter. So, again, those things make up the characteristics of a bog and will reflect what it looks like. And then again, with same thing with management. When you add water and you add vegetation, you start to get more complicated and it becomes tricky to manage. Yeah.
Interesting, the parallel, isn't it, between the human body and the environment? I mean, the human body is an ecosystem, isn't it? I guess
That's right. And we often, again, it extends to not just the management of it, but also monitoring. You know, it's as people, we'll have vital signs, so we monitor our pulse and our breathing. And in the environment, we need there's vital signs in the environment as well that we need to monitor to make sure the system, like the body, is healthy and doing what it should be doing. And then when it's not, we need to get in there and, you know, give it a helping hand. Well, humans have been involved in the alpine area for a long time, and they've done quite a number of things. You've got the dam, and you've got the aqueduct, and you've got the cattle grazing. You've got things like the construction of the road, and that'll change the water flows in the area. And then they've also, you know, quarried material from one place, which was basalt, and they've put it in areas where basalt didn't occur. And they all have an effect on the natural, what we would call natural processes. So we're changing where the water would naturally flow. Cattle ate certain species, so we're changing how a vegetation community looks. So yeah, that our human use does have an impact.
How would you describe the Bogong High Plains landscape?
I'd say it's fairly exposed. A lot of it is above the tree line. So we've got snow gum is the main tree species that we've got up here, but we've got just low vegetation, lots of grass, shrubs, and then in the wetlands we've got, you know, a variety of sphagnum, the moss species, and a variety of sedges and rushes, windswept, exposed rocks. Yeah, and very exposed to a lot of the elements.
It's beautiful country, isn't it? It's magnificent.
Some people could describe it as bleak, possibly, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I find it fascinating, and the colours are great. And if you get it sometimes in a certain light, some of the areas glow. I find it fascinating. You know, I love it up here.
Elaine was right. That night at Falls Creek, 7 centimetres of snow fell. I could hardly believe it the next morning, considering it was summer and we'd already had days of over 30 degrees. But as Elaine said to me the day before, in the Alps it's beautiful one day, perfect the next, but expect the unexpected. And sure enough, within a week or two this whole area was alight with bushfires.